I am creating a series of interviews across September and October specifically to bring people that are helping change the world as we know it before COVID. I am absolutely delighted to introduce to you somebody that I've been following since 2007. Her name is Dina Goldstein. She is an internationally acclaimed pop surrealist documentary photographer based in Vancouver, British Columbia. I first came to know her when I saw her Fallen Princesses work in 2007, where it depicts humanized Disney princesses placed in realistic modern scenarios. And I just remember being slapped in the face with her work. So it's an absolute pleasure, a huge pleasure to introduce Dina Goldstein.
Thank you so much for having me today, Carolyn.
Oh, you have no idea how big this pleasure is for me. So I want to ask you the question. We're in this new world. It's very challenging for absolutely everyone. But tell me, what are you stoked about that is actually inspiring at this time during this particular challenge right now?
Well, as an artist, you know that, especially with my work, that deals with the common imagination, common collective, and inherent belief systems. I'm trying to subvert the dogmatic ways set by humanities and promote critical thinking. So this disruption, I felt, was good in some ways. Of course, it was difficult in many ways. As a mother, my kids have not been at school for 6 months, and there was a time where the vulnerable in society came to the foreground, and I think that's important and led to movements and protests. But on a positive note, the disruption, I believe, is good for humanity because we're on auto every day, and that often leads to an impaired vision in regards to social issues. And perhaps this disruption stopped everybody just for a moment to think about things that they would otherwise not consider.
Yeah, and it's been a particularly tough time. So looking at it through the lens of what you're talking about, where your work is in particular really bringing critical thinking to the work that you do. I mean, you're called a pop surrealist, or I'm calling you a pop surrealist, and that you have this documentary style, so people are able to actually think, probably for the first time, or see for the first time, that there is this disconnect between reality and fairy tales, for example, with the princess photographs that you had taken, which still punch me in the chest every single time I see them. I'm like, God, you're so clever. How is it that people are able to take this reality? And this is a really big question. I'm just throwing that at you right now, Dina. How are people able to take that reality and see it maybe from an artistic lens that you have?
Well, I think it's important to step out of your comfort zone and be able to view the world in other ways. So we very much construct our realities with schedules and all sorts of things that we expect out of ourselves. So, but that's pretty much constructed reality. It's how we humans have decided to function. And what I like to do is just, I guess, wake people up once in a while and say, well, does it always have to be the way that it has been for all of this time, or can we have a new way of approaching things?
And that's really wonderful. I think that, and I even wrote in my book, there has to be another way. This is pre-COVID, and often people just think, no, it is this way. This is the way it should be done. And I like your comment about we build we create these systems or schedules that kind of protect ourselves. And I'm embellishing on what you said, and that when COVID hit, all of those schedules went out of the window. We didn't know who we were anymore.
Absolutely. But it's also important to get down to the basics of what we need. And I think society forgets, and they soothe themselves with commercialism and collection of things and items in order to avoid important thought patterns or divergence from the norm. So for me, I mean, I'm isolated in my studio every day. I live this kind of isolated life. So it wasn't a big pivot, but for other people who are 9-to-5ers and really rely on a schedule, it very much shocked them. And we mentioned that it probably was a positive shock in a way, to have people look around and for the most vulnerable in society to be exposed.
Yeah, we all woke up and realized what was actually going on. It was like that very sudden stop that was global. It wasn't like this thing happened in Hawaii, and it's just a piece of news. It was
international. Absolutely, it's because we created global environment, global market, and travel is ubiquitous. So it's now we can't really look at ourselves as Canadians or Americans or Italians. We're all part of the earth, creatures of the earth, the humanity, and something like this pandemic seems to have brought people together, and I think that's important too. At a time where everybody is so divided by politics and ideology.
Yeah. And that leads me to my next question, where everybody is so divided and it's so difficult and so challenging and so heartbreaking and so confusing. My favorite quote ever is from John Lewis, where he talks about good trouble. And as far as I'm concerned, you create good trouble. You back in 2007, you completely adjusted my thinking with Snow White. Snow White and the husband, the dwarves were the babies everywhere. She was exhausted, and that fairy tale was not happening. So, you're very good at disrupting, but what kind of good trouble? How would you describe that good trouble?
Well, back then I was critical of Disney and the messages that they were delivering to young minds. And I believe that this happily ever after trope was perpetuated by Disney. And eventually they changed their narratives to suit the modern young person, or the modern, it's not necessarily young female minds, but also young male minds. And this subverting of the happily ever after trope was important at a time where things were very much changing for young girls. And they no longer could relate to to being saved by a prince or being saved by a character. So I continued with this theme that was very much inspired by my daughters, with building a life-size dollhouse belonging to Barbie and Ken. And here I talked about unattainable beauty standards that was endorsed by popular culture. And I continue.
So is your dollhouse just behind you? Is this dollhouse?
Right here.
Wow. And so you use actual models here.
Absolutely. So
Wow.
we built a life-size dollhouse, and we cast Barbie and Ken, and pretty much um, built this 10-piece sequential narrative of their life in the dollhouse, which also continues to, for me, to discuss the broad theme of disillusionment.
Mm. So disillusionment compared to, if we put that, align it with good trouble, you're, if I can articulate it and then you could say, no, Caroline, that's wrong. It's, you're helping people to understand their disillusion.
I'm trying to talk about how we have grown up with with stories, some that have been taken very, very seriously and have become religion. So for me, I'm very interested about the common imagination, and also how belief systems can affect our thinking, or our behavior, or the way that we live our lives.
And that's what I really like about that your documentary style. It's a very accessible pop style way of really understanding the reality. It draws you in. You're incredibly clever, and this is why I've admired you for so many years. Your most latest
iconic characters that are very recognizable, that we can really relate to.
Yeah.
And then mess with the reality of it all. So my work can be enjoyed on many levels. Firstly, on a superficial level, where you're attracted to the colors and to the characters immediately. And then you can learn more about what I'm trying to say, what the artist is trying to say in the work. So there's a lot of allegory within my images. So you can take the time to learn, and then you can even go further and disseminate and break down the images, as many people have done within the academic community with dissertations and essays and so on.
Wow. That's impressive, because it really helps people to understand how art imitates life, or life imitates art, or at least helps us to understand really what our reality is about.
Absolutely. So
and what we accept.
Messing with reality can promote more critical thinking on a daily basis. So taking something like pop culture and converting it. For me, maybe it's more palatable for someone to get somebody thinking and talking and creating discourse in general.
Speaking of discourse, your your most recent, I think it's your most recent campaign or series was about the 10 Commandments, where you featured notable presidents, most recent presidents, and created some very hot, debate-worthy content. So how is that going? Because this is the time and the place where it's election season all over again.
Well, the last 4 years have been challenging, I think, for everybody, and getting conversation going around American politics and the American ideal has been very relevant, even to us here in Canada, of course, because we are their immediate next door neighbors. And when America sneezes, Canada catches cold. So I was not a fan of Donald Trump from the very, very beginning. I knew he was going to be disaster.
Mm-hmm.
I just couldn't understand how other people couldn't see that.
Mm.
And we knew he was going to be dangerous, but we didn't know how exactly. But there was this anxiety about his
Mm.
election
Mm.
that nobody really understood.
Mm.
Only probably people that really know him well from New York. Um, anyhow, in response to his election and his behavior and his hubris, and I created a series which included representations of American presidents to talk about the different. Yes, and I juxtaposed it with the moral tenets of the Ten Commandments
Yeah.
to discuss how things have gone wrong in the States,
Mm.
despite their reputation on the world stage.
Mm-hmm. It's a very, very powerful series, and it really, I think it was Lincoln being in. Please correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't know your work like you do.
Sandy Hook. He is staged in a school that is supposed to be Sandy Hook, and that's Thou Shalt Not Kill.
Yeah,
And the setting is the school shooting.
yeah, that one broke my heart. That broke my heart. So back onto Good Trouble. How are you helping? Because right now it's a very delicate time. What kind of Good Trouble would you recommend others like get their hands around?
Well, as I mentioned, I believe that the world is divided very much by ideology,
Mm.
and what we believe divides us.
Mm.
So for me, I really hope that that we can look around and
Mm.
learn how to be more empathetic, or,
Mm.
if your eyes are open, you're more likely to be empathetic. And I believe that that is the ingredient that will help us heal from these last 4 years, and from the hatred that you see arising everywhere.
Mm. So, eyes open, develop your empathy,
Absolutely.
and evolve and move forward. Well, I have to say, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on this live stream. Your work, again, I'm going to keep saying it until I'm dead. Your work has inspired so many people to really come to terms with a lot of the biases or prejudices or, I don't know, norms that we have. Please continue to do your great work, because it's truly inspiring and reality changing.
Sometimes it feels like a thankless job. So I really appreciate the fact that you were touched by my work, that made you think and perhaps look at things differently.
Without a shadow of a doubt. Keep doing your great things. I want to see what your next series looks like. I am a little bit scared. It's going to be amazing.
Don't worry, it's not scary. It's an autobiographical series.
Lovely.
So
and so this is going to be pre-COVID.
It's a more personal series.
Lovely. Well, I look forward to that. So this, just before we go, because you just triggered something for me. So that's more reflective. So was that created during COVID? That concept created during COVID times?
I actually applied for a grant shortly before COVID. I'm turned 50 this year. And
congratulations. Happy birthday.
and you know, again, that makes you think, and that makes you look back upon your life and the pivotal moments that shaped your life and perhaps shaped my vision. So I'm going to be recreating Tableau using models to play myself at different times of my life.
Wow.
Yes, I'm very, very excited about it. It is going to be very emotional, something that I feel like I've looked out into the world and I've tried to make social commentary these last few years, but maybe it's time to kind of look inwards and be critical about things within my life.
Mm.
And so that's the plan for my next large scale series.
I'm very excited to see that. I'm very excited.
I'm excited.
Pardon?
I'm terrified and excited.
Fair enough. That is the right way to go about a project. If it doesn't terrify you, it's not worth doing. Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure. And everybody, eyes open, develop your empathy. Also, look into yourself as well and do some reflecting, because they're all part of the package. Wonderful.
That's great.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.